Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Aura Storm here with another deck profile for you guys. This is going to be the first part of Odd Eyes Magician Week with Structure Deck right around. The Master of Pendulum Structure Deck will be coming out on Friday this week, so I figured now would be a perfect time to show some of you guys some of the Odd Eyes deck and what it might look like on the competitive scene, what you can do, and what you can do if you just want to get the 3 structure decks. Today is going to be pretty much a no budget, balls to the wall deck profile where I pretty much go get all the expensive cards in one deck profile. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to it. So the only non-pendulum monsters I play are 2 copies of Mist Valley, Apex, Avion. I feel like if you're going to play Avion, you need to play 2. 1 was a bit too few, 3 got really cloggy, 2 was kind of just right. And if you get these are really, Avion and the Vortex Dragon is really difficult for your opponent to play around. It does keep you still have to worry about Solemn Warning and in the future Solemn Notice hitting all your Pendulum Summons, but Avion does keep your Pendulum Summons from getting bottomless, which is really, really nice. I might cut this card when we get Time Sword Magician in the TCG, because Time Sword Magician basically does the same thing this card does, keeps my stuff from getting bottomless, which is what I'm really worried. But obviously, it can negate anything. Now let me move some of these over really quickly. Then we're going to talk about some of the outside of archetype support I do play. I do play 2 copies of Archfiend Eccentric. I understand that this card is really, really expensive, and for good reason. The card is really good. Is it $70 good? Probably not, but having an MST in the Pendulum Zone plus a recurable Exile Force every turn is just good. And it's got a scale of 7, which isn't the greatest in this deck, but it fits perfectly in a lot of other Pendulum-based decks. I'd probably run 2 in this deck. There's some decks where Magic Specters where I run as many as 3, so it just depends on how you build the deck. Then 2 copies of Luster Pendulum and Draco Slayer. This is probably, I think, the second most expensive card in those deck lists. I think, and you can see the prices down there. Luster Pendulum, I feel like, usually with Luster Pendulum, I run for every Ignister I run 1 more copy of Luster Pendulum. And with the tightness of the extra deck, I felt like running 1 Prominence and 2 Luster Pendulum was a good call. Because you're never really going to, in this deck, you're not going to use Luster Pendulum's Pendulum effect very often. Then, now we're getting to the Magicians. So, it's 3 copies of Dragon Pit Magician. This card is only you have 2 scale 8s in this deck, so obviously it's really important. Dragon Pit Magician is an MST in the Pendulum Zone. It's really important to run at 3 because, well, it's one of your only 2 scale 8s you play. And then 2 copies of Dragon Bane Magician. You have plenty of small scales in this deck, as opposed to the large ones, so I feel like Dragon Bane Magician is solid as a 2 of. 2 copies of Noble Dragon Magician. This is the new Pendulum Tuner monster. Basically, you can special summon it from your hand or graveyard by targeting an Odd Eyes monster and reducing its level by 3. So basically, it sets up an instant Meteor Burst play, and it's perfect pitch fodder for your Dragon Pit or Dragon Bane Magicians. And then 2 copies of, I think this was Peasant Dragon Magician, but I think it's Oath Dragon Magician TCG. This card is a scale of 2. It has 2 really good effects. Its Pendulum effect allows you to cycle back any of your Magician monsters or Odd Eyes monsters back to your hand from your extra deck. It doesn't seem like much, but when we're going to be getting Twin Twister and people are going to be side decking cards like Spell Shattering Arrow, Fairy Wind, etc., this card is going to be really clutch in that situation. And they blow up your Pendulum scales on their turn. You can just put your own sight, get another Magician, and then just reset your scale. Then of course, the main star of the deck, 3 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. I've played in the Odd Eyes deck, I've actually cut this down to 2 and not noticed too many consistencies. You can play anywhere from 3 to 2, but I kind of like having the 3 just, because it's the star of the deck, you kind of want to run it at 3. 3 copies of Performapal Skull Crobat Joker. This card is normal. It's basically like the Pendulum. It's like the Stratos for this deck. It searches Magician, Odd Eyes, and Performapal monsters except itself. And it is an 8 scale. It's your only other 8 scale in the deck, but it prevents you from Pendulum summoning non-Odd Eyes, Performapal, or Magician monsters. So it's not obviously Avion. You can't Pendulum summon Avion if you have this in the Pendulum Zone. Then 3 copies of Wisdom Eye. I think it was Insight. It's Insight Magician in the OCG, but it's Wisdom Eye Magician in the TCG. This card is the reason the deck is really as good as it is. It's basically you don't really care about its monster effect, but its Pendulum effect allows you to destroy it if you have another Magician or Performance Power card in your Pendulum Zone, then put any of your Magician cards from your deck in your Pendulum Zone. So basically it's a Lone Fire Blossom for Pendulums. Pretty incredible card, and I've even found a little mini engine with this where you can basically splash Pendulums in almost any deck with this card. It's really powerful, and it makes Magicians splashable if you want to play them in, whatever deck. Then 2 copies of Yangtze Magician. I think this card has recently been going up on the secondary market, and for good reason. It gives you access to Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, which is an incredibly potent card. And on top of that, its monster effect is not bad in a format where we will be getting Cyber Dragon Infinity fairly soon. Being able to bait out Infinity's negation and then negate its effect in Yangtze Magician and continue going off is incredibly good. That's all the monsters lineups for the spells. 2 copies of Odd Eyes Fusion. I never really felt the need for 3 because you only play 3 fusions, and frankly, usually you only need the 1 Vortex and the 1 Rune Eyes anyways, so 2 is kind of the ideal number. Obviously, this is another kind of really expensive card right now, so nevertheless, it's really is it as good as people said it is? Yeah, because it's searchable via Sky Iris, so that's one of the reasons why. 3 copies of Pendulum Call. This is another really good search card. If you haven't activated a Magician Pendulum effect this turn, you can discard 1 card, add 2 Magician monsters with different names, but your Magician mons cannot be destroyed by card effects. That means you can't use Wisdom Eye Magician. However, remember it says Magician, so you can activate Pendulum Call and still use Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon's search effect on the end phase. Some people on DN have tried to rule sharp me on that, and it's not the case because it says Magician. Odd Eyes doesn't have Magician in his name. 1 copy of Regeki. It's a staple, basically. Regeki's a really good card. 3 copies of Sky Iris. I've kind of flirted between 2 and 3. I kind of like having the 3rd because it keeps my Pendulum. They have to blow up this before they blow up my Pendulum Zone. It prevents my Pendulums from being targeted by opponent's card effects, which means they cannot Castel my Pendulum Scale. They have to use some kind of mass removal like Fairy Wind or Spell Shattering Arrow, and typically those are in the side deck. So, that's why. And then 1 copy of Bottomless Trap Hole. They're getting the traps, and you can run any different, you don't even really need traps totally in this deck. You can kind of get away with them, but I kind of like having at least a few. 1 copy of Bottomless Trap Hole. It's really good against the Pendulum matchup, and pretty much going forward, it's going to be a staple. 2 copies of Fiendish Chain. You can also run Breakthrough Skill if you feel like Infinity is a problem, but you have Yangtze Magician, so it should be. 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. This card is better than Mirror Force, I think, currently with Cosmos and Magistrictors being a thing. Now we're going to get to the extra deck. 2 copies of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. I don't know if I find myself making the second one, but sometimes your Absolute Dragon might bite the dust, and you might bring out that second one. I still like having the second one, just in case, but it's a really good card. And then 1 copy of Rune Eyes Pendulum Dragon. You don't make this card a ton, but it is really good at clearing off your opponent's board. And the other thing is if you use it with a high level monster, it can actually clear the field of it's unaffected by card effects, so you can clear your opponent's board and they can't Mirror Force or anything if you've used a Pendulum monster to turn it with Summon, which is really nice. So basically it can clear your opponent's board and they can't bottomless when it hits the field. They can't, whatever. They can't Mirror Force. They're going to have to just let this thing clear their field. It's really nice. Now for the Synchros, 1 copy of Clearwing Synchro Dragon. You can go into it in this deck. Keep in mind, Noble Dragon Magician can only make Dragon-type Synchro monsters. But Clearwing is an obvious kind of staple Synchro monster. You can even negate high-level effects is pretty good, and that's why I like it. And then 1 copy of Ignister. Ignister does put in work. Being able to spin a card without targeting will never be bad. Just look at Nolte Queen Tiramisu. And then 1 copy of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. I never find myself needing more than 1 because typically this card has 2 really good effects. When it's Special Summon, you can target 1 card in your Pendulum Zone and Special Summon it, but this card can't attack. So the reason this is so good is because you can loop you can loop back your monster, say your Oath Dragon Magician, and cycle back one of your Pendulum monsters from the graveyard, and then reset your scale on the next turn. And then you can go into an abs, or you can bring a Dragon Pit Magician on your Pendulum Zone, and then overlay for a rank 7. So the reason I think this card, however, is going to be a staple level 7 Synchro, at least in my opinion, is this part of the text: your opponent cannot activate monster effects during the battle phase. This is a pretty neat little effect. Now, like, obviously not every deck uses monster effects during the battle phase. When you realize, like, it's only for your opponent. So if your opponent's running has something like Swift Scarecrow, they can't use it. If it's playing something like against something like Yang Zings, they can't activate their floating. They can't float. Cosmos can't chain. Can't use Farm Girl when they inflict damage or banish during the battle phase. It's a pretty difficult card for certain decks to play around because they have to either Regeki it or get it off the board, or they can't play. So I do think this card can be really good level 7 Synchro when you're pushing for an OTK, because when that's the case, usually your opponent's going to have, if you don't, you can attack without having to worry about running into a Valk or a Swift Scarecrow. Now, everything exceeds, we're getting the rank 4s first. One copy of Castell. Castell's pretty much a staple. I run it in about every rank 4 deck. Copy of Dark Rebellion. I like Dark Rebellion just because it's a big attack monster. There's not a lot of rank 4s that have large amounts of attack, so Dark Rebellion kind of fits that little niche. One copy of Magister Paladin. I really like this card because I don't combo with it with the Draco Slayers as much as some other decks might. But basically, it's like a searcher when you don't have a total pendulum scale, but when you don't have all the pendulum monsters you need, it can get you that one combo piece you're missing. One copy of Arc to deal with monsters with those annoying leave the field type effects. One copy of number 11, Big Eye. Big Eye is still a really effective card in a lot of matchups. A lot of times snatching one opponent's monster is enough to win you the game in certain scenarios. 2 copies of Odd Eye's Absolute Dragon. I find myself, it's the same thing with Vortex. Like, I could probably get away with one, but I like to have 2 just in case. One copy of Red Eye's Flare Metal because I do not play Cowboy. This card basically fits that criteria. And of course, one copy of Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon. This card is the deck's win condition. You don't know how you get this card out with its pendulum effect, with its main effect. You basically have a young Key Magician in the pendulum zone, and as long as you have 3 level 7s on the board, and one of them is a dragon, you can overlay the 2 level 7s for Absolute Dragon, and then use Young Key Magician targeting Absolute Dragon. Then you can overlay your level 7 dragon along with your Rebellion to use its effect and nuke your opponent's board. Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon blows up all opponent's monsters that are below level 7, and they take 1,000 for each. And if you do that, you get 3 attacks during the battle phase, which is incredibly good. And on top of that, if it does manage to bite the dust, it can blow up it can put itself in the pendulum zone, and then on top of that, its pendulum effect allows you to put any pendulum monster from your deck into your pendulum zone, which is incredibly good. So anyway, guys, as always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching the video today. I really appreciate when you guys watch my videos. Tune in on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. Let me know what you think of this Odd Eyes deck profile today, and if you like what you saw in this video, please subscribe. Or Storm, signing out.